Buying an older first car is all well and good, as they're cheap to repair, cheap to maintain, cheap to buy and cheap to insure. However, if you really want to stand out, you should get something modern. However, modern cars are usually expensive, but don't worry, because here are 10 that cost less than £5,000. This is the Volkswagen Polo. Kinda needs no introduction. It's one of the most popular first cars, and it's average. Average looks, average interior, even the engines aren't that interesting. You get a 1 litre or a 1.2, starting from 69 horsepower going up to 105. 105 horsepower is a good option if you want some nice power balance for going on the motorway, etc. I don't really like this car. It's never really been for me. It's a bit boring, a bit average, and I just don't really recommend it. However, there are lots of cars that are based on the Volkswagen Polo which are actually better, and the next 2 cars, or technically 3, are all based off the Polo. A 1.2 litre turbo can be found with 100,000 miles for £5,000. The Seat Ibiza is basically the Spanish cousin of the Polo. It's the same car underneath, it actually has the same engine. Now, the first thing you'll notice from the get-go is this thing is much better looking. It's got a very nice looking front end, and that side profile looks amazing as well. In 3-door spec, this car is known as a sports coupe, which honestly is a bit of a flex. You drive a sports coupe. Your Polo driving friends are never going to say that. This thing is pretty cool. Its interior is nice. Sure, it doesn't have as big of a boot, and it's not as reliable, but still I think this is a cooler car. It's also cheaper, and examples for the same price as the Polo can be found with less miles. The Skoda Octavia estate is about as close as you're going to get to a Volkswagen Polo estate. Based on the Volkswagen Polo, this thing's got a way larger boot and has way more room inside. This thing is pretty cool, and it's an estate, so that definitely gives you some street cred. But the thing is, it's only available with the 95 horsepower engine under £5,000. But if you want more power, I would suggest going for this, the Rapide. Now, this is a car for those who don't really want a hatchback as their first car, and that's completely fine. This is a liftback, I believe, which is just like the Prius, so you do get quite a bit of room in the back, but it does look like a saloon car, and I think that this looks pretty cool. And I can tell you firsthand that the interior on these is extremely nice. It's really nice interior, this. Very, very high quality, and I really like these Skodas. I think Skoda have come a long way over the past few years, and they are fantastic cars. The Rapide is available with the 1.2 litre turbo and has lower mileage. The Fabia is available with the 1 litre engine, which is more economical. Small city cars are ideal for people who live in cities. If you live anywhere else, these are pretty useless. They're not very powerful, and they struggle to get up hills, and they are strained on the motorway. But there is one exception. This thing. The Renault Twingo. This modern Renault Twingo is one of the most modern cars on the list, and I like this. It's got a 90 horsepower engine, and that is actually pretty powerful for something like this, which weighs less than a ton. This thing also has loads of room inside. It's got a very big boot, and the cool thing about this car is it's rear-wheel drive, mid-engined, and turbocharged. Now that is a flex, if you ask me. This thing is very good for the style-conscious buyer, someone who wants to actually look good. This thing looks extremely cool, even today. It has aged very, very well. And best of all, examples with 50,000 miles or less can be found for £5,000. If you want a larger hatchback, then this might just be for you. If you don't really like Golf and you want something a bit more stylish, then I would go for the Renegade. It's very big, it's got lots of space, and it's extremely stylish. Not to mention it also comes in a variety of body styles, including an estate, 5-door hatch, coupe and convertible, if you're extremely desperate to get the attention of girls. Anyway, this thing comes with a 1.6 with variable valve timing, yeah, it's got VTEC, and 110 brake horsepower, which I admit isn't a lot, but it's insurance friendly and that's all that matters. £5,000 should get you a very nice low mileage example. The Citroen C4 Cactus is very weird, but it's kind of cool. It's a car that was designed by the Spanish division of Citroen, so it's not really a French car. But what they did is they fitted it with this padding on the side to prevent any damage from car parks, which honestly is a pretty good feature if you're a new driver, considering, well, it's gonna happen, so you don't need to worry about that anymore. In terms of performance, this thing can get 60 in less than 10 seconds, which is pretty nice. It's got a very big boot, it's got a 1.2 litre engine, so it's very economical, and it's got a very nice interior too. And this thing is very interesting, and it's definitely an interesting choice for a new driver. Examples with fairly low miles can be found for £4,000. For years, the Fiat Panda 4x4 has always been a compact way of getting off-road, and it's a pretty good option if you can't get insured on a Jimny. Well, I don't know why you wouldn't be able to get insured on a Jimny, because, I mean, that's also a very good car that I should have put on this list. Anyway, I decided to put this on the list instead. The Fiat Panda 4x4 it's an interesting car. It's a little bit boring, I know, but I mean, it's four-wheel drive, it's very small, so it's easy to park, and it's available, I kid you not, with a 2-cylinder engine. Now you may think that that's going to be pathetic, but that's actually the most powerful engine you can get in this car. So it's either that or a 60 horsepower engine, so you take your pick. £4,500 should get you an example with fairly good mileage. The Ford Fiesta is the most popular first car in the UK, and honestly it's a pretty good buy. I definitely prefer it over the Polo as it's definitely better looking and it's a bit more interesting. It also handles better and is a fun little car. However, there is one thing that makes this car extremely interesting, and that is its engine. You see, you can get this thing with a 1 litre turbocharged engine that makes 125 brake horsepower. Now that's not only one of the most powerful cars on the list, it's also one of the most powerful 1 litre engines ever put into production. It's also the cheapest car on the list, with low mileage examples being found for £3,000. The Suzuki Swift is a great little hot hatch if you want to have a car that's a bit more JDM. This thing is a great alternative to something like a Mini. It's very small, it handles well, and it's also looks pretty cool. The Swift Sport is actually a pretty good option if you want a proper hot hatch. Actually, this thing makes 136 horsepower in sport spec. And honestly, it's pretty cool and it's a great modern alternative. It's very well equipped and it's going to be very reliable. Loads of examples of the Suzuki Swift can be found under £5,000. Last but not least, we have the Jeep Renegade. The Jeep Renegade was introduced as Jeep's smallest model in their lineup and is pretty much a crossover. Yeah, like, ignore that though. Honestly, I really like these cars. I think they are not like other Jeeps, they're not big and flashy. I think these are very sort of understated. I quite like that. And honestly, these are really nice. I like their interior, they've got loads of room inside, and They're not as reliable, but I think they're still pretty cool, and as a first car, that is a massive flex. In this budget, they're pretty high mileage, and there aren't many examples for less than 5k.